Hello everybody and welcome along to this ARW special podcast on the day that Liverpool have agreed a deal to sign Andy Robertson from Hull. I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert on the player, but luckily for me I've brought two gentlemen on that know absolutely everything about Andy Robertson. Tonight I'm joined by Jonathan and Keith. Jonathan, I know you've been studying really hard on Andy Robertson, so now's your time to shine, buddy. Tell the listeners absolutely everything we need to know about Andy Robertson, please.
Okay, can we get an extension on the pod because I'm going to go all night here?
If necessary.
No, joking aside, while it won't get the bandwagon of the other two major signings, this is a really important signing. It adds a lot of balance to the squad. We struggled big time last season with a lack of width on the left side because for the most part of it, you had a 4-3-3 with no specialist wingers, and the width had to come from our fullbacks, and that being Miller in this case, who was right-footed, who kept cutting inside, and the most left-sided midfielder was Coutinho, who also liked to cut inside on his preferred right foot. So as a result, low defensive teams were pretty much leaving the whole left channel open and completely squeezing on our right side, where you had maybe the more attacking options of Manny and Klein to a lesser extent. For the simple reason that the left channel was open because they knew it wasn't going to be utilised. They knew the two guys would cut inside. Left back has been a problem position for Liverpool as far back as I can remember. I remember even in, I think it was the Hoolier days, we chased after Christian Ziega from Middlesbrough at the time. To sign him, he kind of moves in a similar situation to Robertson coming in here now. He played primarily as a left wing back with attacking strengths, and he really struggled to climatise into Liverpool team and into a more defensive role. Robertson, I think, is kind of he's going to be the attacking option, particularly against smaller teams next season. I still think Miller is going to be primarily first choice. I think Robertson will take a while to climatise. His best assets are he's young, obviously. He's left-footed, which, joking aside, is vitally important.
I don't think you can underestimate the left-footed thing, Jonathan. It's something we can't just gloss over. It's huge. There seems to be a shortage of left-footed players.
It is, because there's none in the squad really at the moment, and you think of the simple things of someone getting to the byline, and I don't necessarily mean getting chalk on their boots or whatever, but just going down the left channel and getting an outswinging ball that it gives the defenders and the keeper a decision to make. Who do I go for? Because if you think about it, it's hard to describe in a pod, but last season you had Millie getting to the byline. He was turning back inside on his right foot. He was putting an in-swinging ball that was going perfectly into the keeper. The keeper shouts, "My ball," comes out and gathers it, and then game over. Now we're going to have an outswinger. The ball's going to be coming in the opposite direction, and the keeper and the defence have a decision to make, and it just adds. And then you'll have such a array of attacking players in the box moving around that you're just waiting for breaks or whatever. The other thing that he will add is he's quite adept at a cutback, which is perfect really for the style of play we have. When you consider we won't necessarily play with an out and out number 9. I know Bobby's going to wear the number 9, but we all know he's not a number 9 by old school. He's the false 9. So you're going to have a lot more options of people coming from deeper at the outside of the box. Even Coutinho coming from deeper in midfield, Keita coming from midfield, even the likes of Manny coming in from the opposite wing, where that cutback is going to be utilised. He's what I like about Robertson, I won't lie, I didn't watch a hell of a lot of him with Hull. To be honest, it would be hard even for Stevie to stand out in his prime, to stand out in that Hull team, because they were brutal. He picked up a bit under Silva when they had more of an attacking style to their play. He played very well in a kind of a left back role, or left wing back role. But before that, under Whelan and under Steve Bruce, it was very hard for him. It was very hard for anyone to look really good in that muck. Really, you're just surrounded by bog average players. But what I like really about Robinson is he's not one of these kind of old school players that just runs down the left wing, gets chalks in the boot for the sake of it. Really, he can read the game very well. If he sees the left winger on the ball, he's very good at cutting it on the inside channel and driving forward. He seems to read the play very well, and that more than anything pleases me, because I know we craved for width for last season, but it's not necessarily the width. It's more of just a different option, just to pull players out of the way, and not just one that has like a one-trick pony that gets the ball, goes on his left foot, whips it in. He adds a hell of a lot more play to him. Just a word of caution: he's probably weakest area is his defending. That's why I would suggest that probably Milner, for all his faults, is probably going to start the season at left back, and it's probably going to see Robertson having to kind of grow and acclimatise into the team and into the squad. But it's a very he would get a hell of a lot more attention if it was a Spanisher. That's been widely reported, but I think it's a very shrewd investment. Particularly, he's a good value player, adds a lot of balance to the quad, and I'm actually excited to see him how he prospers. He's still very young as well, and under the guidance of Klopp, I can see him being a very key player to our squad. And look, put it this way, he can't be any worse than Moreno, can he?
Yeah, no, look, that's a pretty good comparison to put against. I don't think there's many that can be worse than Moreno, and the idea of those third man runs and pullbacks from the edge of the box really got me excited, to be honest, Jonathan. And you've obviously done your homework, so definitely an A+ for you on your research for Andy Robertson. Right, before I come over to Keith, there's I suppose a few things we should really know about the chap. He's 23 years of age. He was born in Glasgow. He's got 4 Scottish under-21 caps and 15 senior appearances. He started his youth career at Celtic and then moved on to Queen's Park. His big move came when he went to Dundee a year later. He was named the SPFA Young Player of the Season in his first full season. He then joined Hull for $2.85 million in 2014. And as Jonathan has taken it up from there, I'll move over to Keith and see what Keith's opinion is on Andy Robertson.
Well, first of all, hopefully by the time this podcast gets released, we're saying officially welcome Andy Robertson, and hoping that Real Madrid haven't come and pipped us to the post and taken him instead.
We'll take Madrid. Madrid can't match us anymore.
Exactly. But no, it's probably similar to a lot of the listeners. I couldn't say I was focusing too much on Andy Robertson last season, but I did my homework for this podcast and just had a bit of a kind of a look into the numbers and the stats. And even though there are a lot of people who say numbers don't really matter, I think in this aspect they do. It tells interesting stories about Andy Robertson. So Robertson made the highest number of key passes, 19, for a left back at age 23 or under. And the season overall, he was 12th for key passes from left back. So first of all, I think, the fact that he's willing to create key opportunities for attacking players in a team that didn't really attack at all is quite promising signs. One thing that I've noticed kind of watching through the YouTube videos and stuff like that is he's very good at playing the ball low and sharp and hard, down on the floor, very, very quick, and it's going to be very, very useful. As of course, we're a team that likes to play possession type of football, so he's going to fit in just fine in that aspect. And he's also, shown signs of that kind of modern wing back, whereby we don't focus so much on whipping the ball high and hoping for a header anymore. Whipping it low and hard, is the best route forward these days. You look at the Monaco left backs and right backs, you look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's also very good at that kind of ability to whip it low and hard into the box is going to be crucial for Liverpool. And it's going to be fantastic to see a player with a left foot do that, because as good as Milner has been, his cutbacks were always a problem. Every time he cut it back, the defence could align themselves and deal with the threat of the ball that would come in. So in terms of the kind of creational aspects, as I said before, key passes, very, very good. He also chipped in with 2 assists, which was joint second in the whole City team. Again, when you're looking at a team that only scored 39 goals last season, it's not exactly setting the world alight, but what it is showing is that he is able to make things happen, even in a team that, was quite more kind of defensive first. He was in the top 10 left backs for tackles. He made 51 overall, and he was 9th for attempted tackles with 72. Again, he was fast, younger than his superiors above him. So everybody in that group of top 10s were anywhere between kind of your 27 to 30-year-olds left backs. He was by far and away, in terms of his contributions, the youngest player in the Premier League to be performing those type of numbers. So again, very, very promising that we're picking up a player so young with the capabilities to be rubbing the shoulders number-wise with the likes of Nathaniel Redmond, with the likes of kind of James Milner, who anybody who has a bad word to say about him, he was in the top 3 for all of these. So he didn't do too badly. So overall, I think that he's definitely got the numbers to prove that he can contribute something quite significant. He's young. He's probably, out of all the left backs we could have picked in England, he's the youngest left back to be performing at the highest rate. So that's a positive. But I agree 100% with Jonathan. I think Robertson will be fighting for a position with James Milner. I just don't see James Milner being moved aside that quickly, except against teams that like to sit with the low block and where width is going to be our main attribute. Then I can see him getting a bit more chalk on his boots.
There's certainly going to be plenty of games next season, Keith, and a lot of opportunities for both guys to get games. But one thing that I'd seen concern some people on Twitter and some people who were a little bit worried about the fact that he's coming from a relegated side. Now, I don't think we can put too much credence on that, because you just have to look at Gini Wijnaldum as an example. But what's your views on the fact that he came from such a poor side?
Well, interestingly enough, I would actually argue that we've collected Andy Robertson from a club that's quite defensively minded. And if you look at Marco Silva's records before they got relegated, they kept a number of clean sheets at home. So he was part of that back four. And even though, Jonathan rightly argues that, defensive is his weak point, what he was receiving was expert defensive training from a manager who's very, very good at it. He made that whole City team very, very difficult to beat. And if you don't forget, one of the teams that he got a clean sheet against was us at home. So he's definitely been trained well. He's been coached well. He's come from the right environment that hopefully, despite the fact that Hull City were relegated, he still is bringing some attributes into the team that could, essentially enhance. And like you said, just like Gini Wijnaldum, he's definitely got something to prove, and he's definitely already proven himself at Premier League level. Again, going back to the numbers, you can look at numbers, yes, you can say numbers on everything, but one thing that you will say is that for him to be that high up as a left back in the Premier League has proven that he is Premier League quality.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, I think nobody is thinking that Andy Robertson's going to come straight in and take that left back spot for the entire season, but putting aside his battle with Milner for the spot, what do you think the guy's ceiling is? Like, how good can he become as a left back?
I suppose that depends a lot on the player, but he has a lot of the key attributes there. Keith has gone through in a lot more detail than I have. So if I got an A+, he's got an A++, or whatever the equivalent.
Keith's the head lick.
But no, joking aside, he has a lot of the key attributes to become Liverpool left back for the next 10 years or so. Like, Millie's not going to be around forever. While he will stay first choice, there's going to be a hell of a lot of games this season, and you can see how much Millie tired throughout the season. And that was with just pretty much this domestic cups and Premier League football. So add in European football as well, and there's no way he's going to survive. The way if Klopp stays with the 4-3-3 system, fullbacks are pretty much one of the most eye-catching players, because they provide all the width. They don't necessarily have to do a lot of defence, especially if we have the high squeeze up high, because you'll have one of the centre midfielders just dropping in between the two centre halves and they split. So your fullbacks, you saw much of times where Milner and Klein last season were pretty much, they weren't even left wing backs. They were kind of left-sided midfielders. They were that high up the pitch. So someone with Robertson, with his attacking qualities, like he could become, he could become a key player. You can see him getting lots of assists, even banging in lots of goals as well. Like, I'm actually, the more I get stuck into it, the more I think more of a kind of a shrewd signing this could turn out to be.
And Jonathan, another factor of this signing that we can't ignore is, what does in and around the 10 million mark buy you these days in the Premier League? I mean, let's be honest, Klopp did an interview recently where he was talking about in Germany you can still pick up players for the £5-10 million mark, but in England that seems to be a thing of the past. So the fee that's been muted around for this signing, It's surely an absolute bargain.
Oh, it's an absolute bargain. I was reading something earlier. Just I think it was one of the whole fan websites, and they were just describing their kind of bewilderment, or really how they were letting such a talent player go for so cheap. Because like if the reality is, if they were charging 25-30 million on the current rate, that's about the market value for him. So we're getting him at an absolute snip. It could turn out to be a fantastic piece of business.
Yeah, so the way it's looked like, we sell Moreno and Robertson signs on the dotted line, we could actually be up on our left back financially as well. Which
it looks like it could be, yeah.
That's no bad thing.
And it looks like a hell of a better player.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like he has a brain for one, which straight away puts him ahead of Moreno. And I'm fairly certain I won't see him around Liverpool walking his dog on his hoverboard.
Has he hoverboards? Has he hoverboards? Like maybe Moreno can leave a few behind for him or something like that.
You might give him a couple of lessons as well on how to look like a dick on a hoverboard before he heads off. Keith, we've spoken about the attributes and the pluses that Robertson will bring to the squad, but it's only fair, I suppose, that we try and focus in on what might be his negatives, on what he might need to work on. So what for you are those negatives and things that he needs to progress with as time goes by?
I think the weight of the shirt is going to be his biggest
good shout.
Issue. It's a big shirt, it's a weighted shirt. Fortunately for him, he's not coming for big money, so it will give him time to adapt and give him time to adjust, and there won't be so much focus on him. But a couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden we're comparing him to Moreno. A couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden we're questioning why we left Milner on the bench. And that type of pressure is going to be a type of pressure that he's never had to deal with before. And I think it's going to be quite significant to see how he deals with it. And it's going to be a testament to his character. Another random point. Again, there may be some fans who probably watch him a bit more. I've heard from some Hull City fans on Twitter that he's not that great in the air either. So don't expect Robertson to come in and solve all our corner issues, because apparently he's not too good with his head. So that could be another attribute that he could get caught out from ultimately. And I think, again, his age. He's a young defender, and I think young defenders take some time to become good defenders. And I think it will just be a case of, are we going to be patient enough to allow him to embed himself in a style and a system that's ultimately going to be so attacking that it's really going to push his defensive limits, to his defensive awareness to the limit, because he's going to be playing so high up the pitch, a lot higher than he was playing up the pitch when he was playing for Marco Silva. And that can be a very, very, very big problem when we're getting caught on the counter. Is he defensively aware, and is he ready to kind of adjust to this new way and new setting of playing football?
Yeah, some good points raised. And Jonathan, Keith touched on it there about the fans and a couple of mistakes and people getting on his back. And surely that's something that, as well as the fee being reasonable, we have to allow that he's a young player and the fans need to give him that time to settle, because we've been a bit too quick as a fan base to jump on some players' backs before. Adam Lallana being an example. It took him probably a full year to settle in, and then we've seen his best last season. So what would your message be to people out there who are that little bit inclined to jump on players' backs that bit early if they make a couple of early mistakes?
Yeah, well, as Keith alluded to there, it is going to be a big step up. I know you can argue that he's played in the Premier League, but it's going to be a hell of a lot different. It's going to be a completely different mentality for him, and it will take a bedding in period, because he's no longer has a defensive shield beside him. Like, he makes one positional error, one basic defensive error, and there's 30-40 yards of green grass towards our goal, and you see how many teams just try and get us in the counter attack. That's something we're going to have to be the fans and everyone has to be reasonable. Like, we can't keep jumping on players' back unless their name is Simon Mignolet.
Don't get Keith started on Mignolet. We'll be here all day if we start this argument. Me and Keith have had many an argument over Simon Mignolet, and I'm sure we'll have many more as the season goes on.
We'll have a podcast special for it.
Yeah, no, but like the kid needs some time, and we just have to be conscious of that. I know it's a results business, and we all want results yesterday, but we just have to have some patience with him. There will be times we'll be screaming, "Bring on Millie." I hope we don't go as far as saying, "Bring back Moreno." I don't think that'll ever happen, but he will need some time.
So, lads, I think we've pretty much given everybody all the information we have on Andy Robertson. We're not going to claim to be experts on him. We'll welcome him to the club like any other player, but just your closing thoughts on what his future might be at the club and what you're expecting from him over this first season, I suppose. So, Keith, I'll come to you first. What would be your hopes and expectations for his first year at the club?
I think a few big performances. I'm not expecting him to take the number one left back position just yet, but I want to see by the end of the season that we're pretty much saying give it to him, and he deserves it. I hope that he kind of really shows how good he is on the ball, how effective he can be in creating opportunities, and more than anything, proving the point that we really did need a left-footed left back the whole time, and showing just how much better we are when we have a balanced wing position, and that's kind of my expectation. My hopes for him for the future, I hope that he becomes a solid, almost like a Steve Finnan. You know what I mean? Something like that.
I'd love a Steve Finnan. I'm not gonna lie, I'd love a Steve Finnan.
Oh, don't get me started on Stevie.
He doesn't need to be a Marcelo. He doesn't need to do step overs. He doesn't need to be skillful. None of that. He just needs to be effective. He needs to do his job, be sound defensively, offer opportunities, attack. And you know what? If he's providing assists for a whole City team that had Abel Hernandez up front, could you imagine what he could be providing when he's got Salah, when he's got Firmino, when he's got Sturridge? He's got no excuse. He's got so much talent there to provide opportunities for. I reckon he could really have his hands full. And, for FPL purposes, fantasy football players out there up and down the country, he could be a steal.
You touched on FPL there, and I can't let it go now. Any of the listeners that are out there, check out our Twitter account, @theofficial ARW. We've got our Fantasy Football League pinned to our account. Lots of great prizes, some swap prizes throughout the year. First place is going to get the choice of an 18-19 Liverpool shirt, home away or third one. Everything on it, badges, name, number, and then second and third will get the choice whatever jersey they want. 18-19 Liverpool kit, any one of them. So Keith brought it up. I wasn't going to raise it, but hell, I love a plug. So check out the Fantasy League. Jonathan, some positive stuff there from Keith. What would be your hopes and aspirations for Andy Robertson for the season ahead?
I hope come, say, Christmas time, coming into the Christmas period of fixtures, that he's well and truly settled into the club and that he pretty much is having a really good battle with Millie for left back. You have
Mignolet now on the brain, don't you?
I do, yeah. Well, you never know. He could be good with his hands. He could be a better option. He'd definitely be able to pass the ball out better than Moreno was.
Without a doubt.
No, I hope come Christmas time that he's that is for the games that Miller isn't playing, that we're not missing him, and that we can see the attacking purpose that he brings to him. I'd like to be in a position. I would settle with this. We know going into our big game, Champions League or top 6 team in the league or whatever, that we want someone solid and reliable, we go with Millie. We know if we want to go a bit more gung-ho and we want to try and open up teams a bit more, that we can play and trust Robertson. I think if we get to that situation where we can juggle our fullbacks, I know we've said it many times over pods, but if you can get to kind of a Spurs scenario this year with their fullbacks where they can interchange their fullbacks depending on the opposition, the style of their football they want to play or whatever, just to give us that options. And then you look on the right and you have pretty much a similar scenario with Klein being the more defensive, solid guy you trust a bit more, and then you've Trent bombing on the young kid on the block, just going gung-ho, the attacking option. If we get to that situation with both pairs of full-back, I'd be very happy.
Thank you very much. Well, folks, you've heard what Keith and Jonathan have had to say. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you'd like to check out more of our stuff, you can check out our YouTube channel, ARW Now. You'll find all our podcasts and some great video content on there. Huge thanks to Jonathan and Keith for joining us. We'd like to wish Andy Robertson the best for the season ahead, and thank you all for listening. I've been your host, Craig. Bye bye.